Gearhart Mountain, Oregon, May 5, 1945, 10:30 a.m. Reverend Archie Mitchell is parking his car near Leonard Creek, preparing to unload lunch for a church picnic. Behind him, his pregnant wife Elsie and 5 Sunday school children are hiking through the forest, excited to fish, to enjoy the warm spring day, to forget about the war that's been raging for nearly 4 years. One of the children calls out, "Look what I found!" Archie turns. Through the trees, he can see them gathered around something, a large balloon, probably debris. He's about to warn them not to touch it when the explosion is massive, deafening. The forest erupts in smoke and flame. Archie runs toward the blast site. What he finds will haunt him forever. His wife Elsie, 5 months pregnant with their first child, is dead. All 5 children are dead. Dick Patsky, 14, Jay Gifford, 13, Edward Engen, 13, Joan Patsky, 13, Sherman Shoemaker, 11. 6 people killed instantly by a weapon that traveled 5,000 miles across the Pacific Ocean, launched from Japan, carried by the jet stream, the only World War II casualties on the continental United States from enemy action. This is the story of Japan's Fugo balloon bombs, the weapon that killed 6 Americans in an Oregon forest, and the government silence that kept the tragedy secret for weeks. The weapon born from desperation, 1942 to 1944. The balloon bomb program began with a humiliation. On April 18, 1942, Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle led 16 American B-25 bombers on a daring raid against Tokyo. The damage was minimal, but the psychological impact was enormous. Japan, the island nation that had attacked Pearl Harbor just months earlier, wasn't invincible. American planes could reach Japanese soil. Japanese military officials were furious and embarrassed. They wanted retaliation. But how? Japan's military resources were stretched thin, fighting across the Pacific. They couldn't spare planes for bombing missions against the American mainland. They needed something else, something cheap, something that required no pilots, something that could strike fear into American hearts while costing minimal resources. They developed Fugo, the balloon bomb. The concept was ingenious if desperate. Japan would launch thousands of hydrogen-filled balloons carrying bombs. The balloons would ride the newly discovered jet stream, high-altitude winds flowing west to east at up to 300 miles per hour. In approximately 70 hours, the balloons would cross the Pacific Ocean and reach North America. Japanese engineers built Fugo balloons from washi, mulberry paper. Each balloon measured 33 feet in diameter, as tall as a 3-story building, inflated with hydrogen. The balloon carried 5 bombs, 4 incendiary devices designed to start forest fires, and 1 33-pound anti-personnel explosive designed to kill. A clever system of sandbags controlled altitude during the journey. As the hydrogen cooled at night and the balloon descended, an altimeter would automatically drop sandbags to regain height. This allowed the balloon to maintain its altitude for days. Between November 1944 and April 1945, Japan launched over 9,000 balloon bombs from the island of Honshu. Schoolgirls in Japan worked long hours gluing paper sections together with potato paste. They never knew they were making weapons of war. They thought they were making meteorological devices. The balloons were released and sent eastward on their 3-day journey across the Pacific. Silent invasion, December 1944, May 1945. The first balloon bomb exploded in Wyoming on December 6, 1944. People heard a strange whistle, then a blast that left a crater in the ground. More followed. By January 1945, balloons appeared across western states. On January 4th, Oregon's first balloon bomb exploded near Medford, shooting flames 20 feet high. Balloons landed in Montana, California, Washington, Alaska, even as far east as Michigan. One was found in Mexico. Several reached Canada. The military was alarmed. These were enemy weapons reaching American soil, undetected, untrackable, potentially starting massive forest fires or killing civilians. Behind the scenes, 2,000 military personnel worked on Project Sunset to find and study the balloon bombs across North America. Scientists analyzed sand from balloon sandbags to trace their origin to specific beaches on Honshu. But publicly, complete silence. On January 4th, 1945, the U.S. government ordered newspapers and radio stations not to report on balloon bombs. The goal was simple: keep Japan from learning their weapons were reaching America. If the Japanese knew their balloons were successful, they might launch more, improve the design, create bigger threats. News outlets agreed to stay silent. Officials feared public panic if people knew enemy bombs were landing in their communities. The plan worked. Without news coverage, Japanese leaders had no idea if their balloons succeeded or failed. They couldn't confirm fires, couldn't verify explosions, couldn't track where balloons landed. As weeks passed without any reports, Japanese military leaders concluded the program was failing. In April 1945, just weeks before the Bly tragedy, Japan stopped launching balloon bombs. They believed the weapons weren't reaching America or causing any damage. The irony is devastating. If the U.S. government had publicized the balloon bombs, Japan might have launched more. The censorship likely saved lives, except for 6 people in Oregon who had no idea the danger existed. The picnic, May 5th, 1945. Saturday morning, May 5th, 1945. Bly, Oregon, a timber town of about 450 people in south-central Oregon. Reverend Archie Mitchell, 26, pastor of the Christian and Missionary Alliance Church, organizes a Sunday school picnic. His wife Elsie, also 26 and 5 months pregnant, almost doesn't go. She'd baked a chocolate cake the night before, but feels unwell. Eventually, she decides to join. The group includes 5 children from the church: brothers Dick and Joan Patsky, siblings from a local logging family, Jay Gifford, 13, Edward Engen, 13, Sherman Shoemaker, 11. They drive toward Gearhart Mountain, looking for a good fishing spot near Leonard Creek. The logging road is blocked, so they stop. Archie stays with the car to unload lunch. Elsie and the children walk ahead through the forest. Then one of them sees it, a large object on the ground, partially buried, strange material, shroud lines, a balloon. They call back to Archie. He starts walking toward them, and as he approaches, he hears someone say, "Look what I found." The explosion happens instantly. According to witnesses later, Dick Patsky had picked up or moved part of the bomb, triggering the anti-personnel device. Archie runs to the site. All 6 are dead or dying. Dick, Jay, Edward, and Sherman died instantly. Joan Patsky survived the initial blast, but died minutes later. Elsie's dress had caught fire. Archie burned his hands trying to extinguish the flames, but she was already gone. 6 people, 1 forgotten weapon, the only World War II casualties on the continental United States from enemy action. The silent treatment. That afternoon, an ordnance expert from Lakeview Naval Air Station arrived to remove any remaining explosives. Lieutenant Colonel Charles F. Bazinius, an intelligence officer from Fort Lewis to Washington, secured the site. He ordered that newspaper accounts identify the blast as an explosion of an unknown source. The censorship continued. Even though 6 Americans were dead, the government wasn't ready to tell the public about balloon bombs. Archie Mitchell accompanied his wife's body to Port Angeles, Washington, for her funeral. On May 9th, a mass funeral for 4 of the children was held in Klamath Falls, with 450 people attending. Sherman Shoemaker's body was sent to Live Oak, California. The front-page story in the May 7, 1945, Klamath Falls Herald and News provided no details. 6 people killed by an explosion of unannounced cause. Finally, on May 22nd, 17 days after the explosion, the War Department issued a statement confirming the bomb's origin and nature. They wanted to reassure the nation that the attacks are so scattered and aimless that they constitute no military threat, while warning people of the danger. On June 1st, 1945, the government fully lifted the news blackout. Newspapers could finally report the true cause of the Bly explosion. But by then, the story was overshadowed. Germany had surrendered on May 8th. The war in Europe was over. Headlines focused on victory celebrations and the ongoing fight against Japan. The deaths of 6 Americans in an Oregon forest barely registered nationally. The aftermath. The balloon bomb program was more widespread than anyone realized. About 300 to 1,000 of the 9,000 launched balloons reached North America, though only 361 have been confirmed found across 26 states, Canada, and Mexico. Except for Elsie Mitchell and the 5 children killed near Bly, the bombs caused no other fatalities. Some started small fires that were quickly extinguished. Some exploded harmlessly in remote areas. Many were never found and may still be buried in forests and mountains across the West. The 6 victims hold a unique and tragic place in history. They remain the only civilians killed by enemy action on mainland U.S. soil during World War II. In 1950, Weyerhaeuser Timber Company constructed a monument at the explosion site, native stone with a bronze plaque listing the victims' names and the statement, "Who died here May 5, 1945, by Japanese bomb explosion, only place on the American continent where death resulted from enemy action during WWII." On August 20, 1950, approximately 500 people attended the monument's dedication. Oregon Governor Douglas McKay spoke, declaring that the victims were casualties just as surely as if they had been in uniform. Elsie Mitchell's parents attended. So did many residents of Bly who remembered that terrible day. A ponderosa pine near the site, the shrapnel tree, still shows scars from the explosion. The Mitchell Monument is now part of the Fremont-Wynma National Forest, maintained by the U.S. Forest Service. It was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2003. The site has received numerous Japanese military veterans and civilians who came to apologize for the deaths. The life after. Archie Mitchell's story continued in unexpected ways. In 1947, he married Betty Patsky, the older sister of Dick and Joan, 2 of the children killed in the explosion. Together they fulfilled the missionary dream Archie and Elsie had shared. They served in Vietnam for 2 5-year terms, working at the Ban Me Thuo Leprosarium. They had 4 children together. On May 30th, 1962, Archie Mitchell was kidnapped by the Viet Cong along with 2 other missionaries, Daniel Gerber and Dr. Eleanor Vietti. None of the three were ever seen again. His fate remains unknown. Betty Mitchell later reflected on the tragedy that shaped her life. When you talk about something like that, as bad as it seems when that happened and everything, I look at my 4 children. They never would have been, and I'm so thankful for all 4 of my children and my 10 grandchildren. They wouldn't have been if that tragedy hadn't happened. It's a remarkable statement of resilience, finding gratitude even in profound loss. The Japanese reconciliation. In the late 1980s, University of Michigan professor Yuzuru John Takeshita, a Japanese-American who had been incarcerated in California during the war, learned that the wife of a childhood friend had helped build Fugo bombs as a schoolgirl. He facilitated correspondence between the former schoolgirls and the residents of WWII. The Japanese women folded 1,000 paper cranes as a symbol of regret for the lives lost. In the 1990s, they met face-to-face in WWII. The women who built the bombs as children embraced the families who lost loved ones. It was a moment of reconciliation decades in the making. Sakio Adachi, the Japanese meteorologist who had advocated balloon warfare, also visited the Mitchell Monument after the war. He left a wreath and expressed condolences. These gestures couldn't undo the tragedy, but they represented something important: acknowledgement, responsibility, and shared grief across enemy lines. The final memorial. Today you can visit Mitchell Recreation Area in the Fremont-Weinmont National Forest, 13 miles northeast of WWII. The monument stands where 6 people died. Picnic tables surround the site. The shrapnel tree still bears its scars. Few Americans know this story. The balloon bombs remain obscure, a footnote in World War II history. The censorship that kept them secret in 1945 succeeded so well that even today, most people have never heard of Fugo. But the families remember, WWII remembers, and the monument ensures that Elsie Mitchell, Dick Patsky, Jay Gifford, Edward Engen, Joan Patsky, and Sherman Shoemaker are not forgotten. 6 Americans, killed by a weapon that floated 5,000 miles across the Pacific, the only World War II deaths on U.S. soil from enemy action. A picnic turned to tragedy, a weapon of desperation that claimed innocent lives, a reminder that in war, danger can come from anywhere, even from the sky, carried by winds, arriving without warning. They died in an Oregon forest on a beautiful spring day, doing nothing more dangerous than looking for a place to fish. And they became history.